She took $20,000 for one night, until the feared millionaire wanted her heart forever. When he placed the check on the table, her father's medical costs covered with no strings attached, she felt something more dangerous than relief. She felt seen for the first time since her mother died. Have you ever been completely misread by someone? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She stared at the contract one last time. $20,000 for one night with a stranger, the exact amount needed to save her father's life. Brianna Torres took a deep breath, her finger hovering over the signature line as Chicago's city lights twinkled through the agency's windows. 3 jobs, endless overtime, and she was still drowning in medical bills that multiplied faster than she could count. Once you sign, there's no going back, the elegant woman across the desk reminded her. The client expects discretion and completion. Brianna's hand trembled slightly. After her mother's death 2 years ago and her father's sudden collapse last month, this was her last option. The hospital in Baltimore had given her an ultimatum: pay by Friday, or they'd stop the specialized treatment keeping him alive. "Will I know who he is beforehand?" she asked, voice steadier than her heart. "No, you'll receive an address, time, and security code. Or something tasteful. Be clean, presentable, and follow his lead." The woman's practiced smile never reached her eyes. "Our clients pay for fantasy, not complications." Brianna closed her eyes briefly. 28 years of fighting to keep her dignity. Working night shifts as a nursing assistant in Memphis. Serving drinks to handsy customers in Vegas clubs. Moving 6 times in 3 years to find better opportunities. All to end up here, selling the one thing she protected her entire life. She signed her name with a swift, decisive stroke. 3 hours later, the taxi dropped her at a gleaming skyscraper overlooking Lake Michigan. Clutching her worn purse against her thrift store dress, Brianna stepped into a private elevator, authorization code memorized. Her reflection stared back from mirrored walls, dark skin glowing with nervous energy, eyes holding determination instead of shame. "Would you sacrifice your dignity for someone you love?" she whispered to herself. "How far would you go before crossing your own boundaries? I guess I'm about to find out." The elevator climbed silently, each floor bringing her closer to a stranger's bed and her father's salvation. She practiced her smile, not too eager, not too reluctant. Practiced numbing herself to whatever would happen next. As the elevator chimed at the penthouse floor, Brianna had no idea the man waiting above was about to change everything. Not by taking what she offered, but by seeing what no one else had bothered to look for. The most feared man in American business stood before her, not with lust in his eyes, but with a question nobody had asked her in years. "Are you hungry?" David Whitford wasn't what she expected. Tall and imposing in an unbuttoned dress shirt and perfectly tailored pants, he studied her with eyes that cut through pretense like ice through glass. No greeting, no smile, just intense focus that made her skin heat despite the room's chill. Yes, Brianna admitted, caught off guard. She prepared for demands, not dinner. He nodded once, gesturing toward a dining table already set with covered platters. "Seat." The penthouse stretched around them in minimalist luxury, all clean lines and calculated emptiness. Floor-to-ceiling windows transformed Chicago into an ocean of lights beneath them. Nothing personal adorned the space. No photos, no mementos, just expensive emptiness. The agency explained the arrangement. His voice remained neutral as he poured wine into crystal glasses. "They did." Brianna kept her back straight, chin lifted. "I understand what's expected." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe curiosity. "Do you?" Their fingers brushed as he handed her a glass, sending an unexpected shiver up her arm. She pulled back quickly, but not before noticing how his eyes tracked the movement. "Tell me why you're here," he said, sitting across from her. Not touching the food, not drinking the wine, just watching. "You know why." Her answer came sharp, defensive. "I know what you're selling. I want to know why." The directness knocked her off balance. Clients weren't supposed to ask questions. They weren't supposed to care. Medical bills, she finally offered. My father needs surgery the insurance won't cover. David's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. And you chose this solution because banks don't give loans to people like me. The words came out bitter. Because I've worked 3 jobs for years and still can't catch up. Because he'll die without it. His gaze never wavered. I don't want your body, Ms. Torres. I want to know who you really are. Have you ever been completely misread by someone? She wanted to ask. When was the last time a stranger saw through your mask? When he placed the check on the table, her father's medical costs covered with no strings attached, she felt something more dangerous than relief. She felt seen for the first time since her mother died. She took his money at dawn and vowed never to see him again. A promise she intended to keep until his security team appeared at her father's hospital room 3 months later. The night had passed in conversation, not contact. Hours of questions that peeled away layers neither expected to reveal. His childhood in a Michigan trailer park before oil investments made him wealthy. Her dreams of opening a clinic in communities like the one she grew up in. His loneliness despite success. Her exhaustion beneath determination. Why are you doing this? Brianna asked as morning light streamed through eastern windows, turning the sky pink above Chicago's skyline. They sat on opposite ends of his couch, empty coffee cups between them. Because some things shouldn't have a price tag. David's voice had softened during the night, losing its boardroom edge. What you were going to sell, it should be given freely or not at all. She looked away, unable to face his directness. You make it sound simple. It is simple, just not easy. He stood, moving to his desk. Your father's procedure is scheduled for next Tuesday at Johns Hopkins. I made arrangements. Her throat tightened. I can't repay this. I'm not asking you to. The space between them hummed with unspoken tension as he walked her to the elevator. His hand hovered near hers, not touching but close enough that she felt its warmth. Some debts can't be repaid with money, he said quietly. Some prices are too high even for billionaires. She stepped into the elevator, check clutched in her hand, body tingling with awareness of a touch that never happened. Goodbye, Mr. Whitford. David, he corrected, eyes holding hers as the doors began to close. My name is David. Brianna kept her promise. She disappeared back to Baltimore, watched her father recover, and never contacted the man who saved him. Life slowly rebuilt itself, a better nursing position, an apartment without roaches, small steps toward stability. Until the text from an unknown number froze her blood 3 months later. He knows about your father. He knows you lied. Run. The man who owned half of Texas now wanted only one thing. The woman who disappeared with his money and, unknowingly, his heart. Find her. David's command echoed through his private jet as it cut through storm clouds toward Atlanta. Lightning flashed outside, matching the cold fury in his eyes as he studied the file his head of security had compiled. Brianna Torres had vanished from Baltimore 2 weeks after her father's successful surgery. The money, his money, had indeed saved Robert Torres's life. But the rest had been lies. Robert wasn't just any sick father. He was former military intelligence with connections to people who operated in shadows. People who had needed him silenced 3 years ago. People now circling back to finish what they started. And Brianna had known. Not everything, perhaps, but enough to be afraid. Enough to run. Sir, we've located her at the Meridian Hotel in downtown Atlanta. His security chief placed photographs on the table between them. Brianna entering a side door, checking lobby exits, always looking over her shoulder. David closed the file, memories of their night together interrupting his thoughts more frequently than he cared to admit. Her laugh when he described his first failed business venture. The fierce pride in her eyes when speaking about her community work. The vulnerability she tried to hide behind practiced smiles. Have we confirmed who's following her? 2 men, likely connected to Brighton Industries. They've been tracking her since Baltimore. Brighton, his longtime competitor and suspected defense contractor with government ties, even David couldn't match. The connection confirmed his worst fears. Land immediately. I'll handle this myself. At night, alone in luxurious hotel rooms across the country, David would wake from dreams of her. Not sexual fantasies, but simple moments. Her hand in his, her voice saying his name. Comforts he'd never sought until spending one night in conversation with a woman who'd seen past his wealth. Have you ever been pursued by someone who wouldn't take no for an answer? He wondered as the plane descended. What would you do if they claimed it was to protect you? When the hotel door burst open in Atlanta, she expected David's security team, not David himself, standing alone with rain-soaked clothes and eyes that burned with questions she couldn't answer. He crossed 3 states to find her, only to discover the woman he couldn't forget was running from something far more dangerous than him. Get out! Brianna backed against the window, a hotel lamp gripped in white-knuckled hands. Recognition dawned slowly, fear morphing to confusion, then anger. David? How did you? Brighton's men are in the lobby. He closed the door quietly, dripping rainwater onto cheap carpet. We have maybe 10 minutes before they realize I'm here. Thunder cracked outside, casting his face in harsh shadow. She lowered the lamp but didn't release it. Who sent you that text? He demanded. How do you know about? Answer me, Brianna. Who warned you about me? Her chin lifted, that familiar defiance that had first caught his attention. My father's old friend. He said you were asking questions, digging into our past, because Brighton's people started moving money the day after we met. He stepped closer, noting how she tensed but didn't retreat. The same people who arranged your father's accident 3 years ago. The lamp crashed to the floor. What are you talking about? Your father didn't have a random stroke. He was poisoned slowly, methodically, because he knew something about Brighton's defense contracts. David's voice softened despite the urgency. I've been trying to prove it for months. So I was what research? A way to get to him. Her voice cracked, hands clenching into fists. Did you know who I was that night? No. The single word hung between them. I didn't know until you disappeared. Lightning illuminated the small room, revealing tears she fought to contain. David moved closer, drawn by an impulse he couldn't name. Don't. She pressed her back to the wall. I don't need another man trying to control my life, David. Even if he's richer than the last one. Something snapped between them, tension breaking like a dam. His hands found her face, her fingers clutched his shirt, and their mouths met in a kiss born from anger and attraction in equal measure. Her taste, her warmth pulled him deeper until she suddenly pushed him away, breathing hard. When attraction and anger collide, which one wins? Hung unspoken between them. The bullet shattered the window before either could speak again. Someone didn't want their conversation to continue. She swore she'd never trust a rich man again, until bullets started flying and the only safe place left was his private jet. Glass exploded around them as David yanked Brianna to the floor, covering her body with his own. 2 more shots punched through the wall above their heads. Stay down, he ordered, pulling a handgun from an ankle holster. You're armed, she gasped, eyes wide. I own oil fields in Texas. What did you expect? He peered cautiously over the bed. We need to move. Now. They crawled toward the bathroom as another bullet shattered the TV. David kicked open the emergency exit in the shower, a modification he'd had his security team make hours earlier. You planned this, she accused as they hurried down metal stairs. I plan everything. He guided her through service corridors, one hand steady on her lower back. Except meeting you. Rain soaked them instantly as they burst into the alley. A black SUV waited, engine running. The driver nodded once as they scrambled inside. My father, Brianna started, is already protected, David finished. My team moved him to a private facility this morning. She slumped against the leather seat, adrenaline giving way to exhaustion. Why are you doing this? David didn't answer until they reached the airport, his private jet gleaming under floodlights like a massive predatory bird. Because Brighton didn't just target your father. They've been sabotaging my company for years. This isn't charity, Brianna. It's alliance. The plane interior wrapped around them in muted luxury. City lights vanished beneath clouds as they ascended into darkness. Only then did she notice the blood seeping through his sleeve. You're hurt. She moved to his side, pulling back torn fabric to reveal a graze along his bicep. It's nothing, But he didn't stop her as she located the first aid kit. Her fingers worked methodically, nursing training taking over. Each touch sent awareness crackling between them, the small cabin suddenly too intimate. "Why did you run?" he asked quietly. "After your father's surgery." Her hands paused. "The agency called. Said you were asking questions about my father's past." "About me." "Not me. Brighton." The revelation hung between them. She'd been running from the wrong man. Would you trust someone with your life before you trusted them with your heart? The question played through her mind as she finished bandaging his arm. When he fell asleep beside her, his guard finally down, she could have taken the pilot's phone and disappeared again. Instead, her fingers found his, and for the first time in years, Brianna stayed. The billionaire who owned 30 homes took her to the one place no one would look, a modest lake cabin built by his own hands before money changed everything. Dawn painted Michigan's sky in watercolor strokes as their vehicle crunched along a gravel road. Pine trees crowded close, their branches scraping the roof like curious fingers. "My grandfather's land," David explained, watching her reaction closely. "I built the cabin during college, before the first oil deal." The structure emerged from morning mist, honey-colored logs, and a stone chimney. Nothing like the glass and steel fortress she'd expected. "You built this?" Brianna couldn't hide her surprise. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "Not everything about me comes with a price tag." Inside smelled of pine and memories. Hand-carved furniture, stone fireplace, windows framing the lake like living paintings. No high-tech security, no staff, no ostentation, just craftsmanship and quiet. "We're off-grid here," he said, setting down their bags. "Nope, a digital footprint. We'll be safe while my team handles Brighton." "Safe," she repeated, testing the word. "I forgot what that feels like." As night fell, David built a fire while Brianna prepared simple food from stock supplies. The domesticity felt strangely natural, like players finding marks on a stage they'd rehearsed for without knowing. "My father was a military contractor," she said suddenly, breaking hours of comfortable silence. "He discovered something about weapons testing. Something illegal. Then came the stroke." David nodded, pieces falling into place. "Brighton specializes in next-generation defense technology. Your father was silenced. And now they're after me because they think I know what he knew." Her hands trembled slightly. "But I don't. I swear I don't." Firelight played across his features as he moved beside her on the couch. "I believe you." Those 3 words, simple, direct, without qualification, broke something inside her. 3 years of running, hiding, questioning every motive, every offer of help. His hand found hers, warm and solid. When his eyes met hers, the question was clear. She answered by leaning forward, lips meeting his with hunger that surprised them both. His touch wasn't demanding, but questioning, each caress asking permission, each kiss seeking truth rather than submission. Clothes fell away between whispered consent and shared breath. Firelight transformed skin to gold as they explored each other with increasing urgency. "Is this okay?" he murmured against her neck. "Yes," she breathed, surprised by how much she meant it. After, wrapped in blankets before dying embers, she watched moonlight play across the lake. For the first time in years, Brianna felt present rather than poised to flee. Is vulnerability more intimate than passion? She wondered silently. When did someone's emotional openness affect you more than physical attraction? Morning brought clarity and with it, terror. She'd given her body to the man who might still be working with her enemies. The gun in his desk drawer confirmed her worst fears. The night she surrendered to him was the same night she discovered the photographs, her father meeting David's business partner 3 years earlier. Brianna's hand shook as she rifled through the desk drawer, searching for a phone charger. Instead, she found a manila folder containing what couldn't possibly exist: surveillance photos of her father with James Carraway, David's right-hand man, outside a Washington, D.C. hotel. Dated 3 years ago, 6 weeks before her father's stroke. Her stomach lurched. The gun she discovered minutes earlier now made perfect sense. Find something interesting? She whirled to find David in the doorway, hair still damp from swimming in the lake. His expression shifted from relaxed to alert as he registered what she held. You knew. She threw the folder at him, photos scattering like autumn leaves. You knew who my father was before we ever met. Brianna, was any of it real, David? Or was I just another acquisition? Her voice broke on the last word. Another asset to help destroy Brighton. He stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. Let me explain. Explain what? That you tracked me through the agency? That last night was reconnaissance. Each question lashed like a whip. Did you enjoy testing my loyalty? I didn't know who you were until after that night. His voice remained level despite her accusations. Caraway identified your father from security footage of you leaving my building. Rain began pattering against windows, nature's soundtrack to their unraveling. Your father and Caraway were investigating Brighton together, David continued. When your father disappeared, so did crucial evidence. Brighton's people tried to silence him permanently. Convenient story. Bitterness coated each word. With a convenient solution, seduce the daughter for information. Anger finally flashed across his face. Is that what you think last night was? I don't know what to think anymore. She grabbed her bag, shoving in essentials. I've spent 3 years running from people who want to use me to get to my father. Turns out, I ran straight into their arms. Brianna, please. He blocked the doorway, desperation replacing anger. Brighton is framing my company. They're using your father's information to make it look like we violated international weapons treaties. The pieces align too perfectly, explaining his interest, his resources, his protection, and his betrayal. Have you ever trusted someone completely only to question everything afterward? The thought cut deep as she pushed past him. Where are you going? It's not safe. Nowhere is safe. She grabbed the keys to his car from the hook by the door. Especially not here. She was gone before dawn, taking his car and the file that proved what she most feared. Her father's accident 3 years ago wasn't an accident at all. She drove through 3 states with his credit card and his secrets, not knowing he was exactly 2 hours behind her, or that someone else was watching them both. Ohio bled into Pennsylvania as Brianna pushed the luxury sedan past speed limits, her mind racing faster than the engine. The folder sat on the passenger seat like a bomb, evidence connecting David to her father in ways that couldn't be coincidence. At a truck stop outside Pittsburgh, she bought hair dye, switched license plates with an abandoned car, and paid cash for a motel room with peeling wallpaper and questionable sheets. Think, she muttered, taping photos and documents to the wall. Red yarn connected faces, dates, locations, creating a web of conspiracy that centered on Brighton Industries. David's company, Whitford Energy, had competed with Brighton for a classified government contract 3 years ago. Both developed experimental fuel technologies with military applications. Whitford won unexpectedly. Weeks later, her father suffered his stroke. Months after that, rumors began circulating about illegal testing at Whitford facilities. Her father had been investigating both companies. He trusted no one, including David's partner, despite their meetings. What were you hiding, Dad? She whispered to a photo of Robert Torres in military uniform. The laptop she'd taken from David's cabin held encrypted files that surrendered to her father's old password combination, his way of leaving breadcrumbs only she would recognize. What emerged made her blood run cold. Evidence that Brighton had developed prohibited weapons technology, then framed Whitford using forged documents. Her father had discovered the plot, saved the evidence, then been silenced before he could expose the truth. David wasn't the villain. He was the next target. Rain lashed against windows as night fell. She tried his number, disconnected. Tried Caraway, voicemail full. Tried her father's protected facility, no answer. Would you confront dangerous truths alone, or trust someone who might have betrayed you? The question haunted her as headlights swept across motel room walls. Not David's car. Too slow, too deliberate. She grabbed essential evidence, shoved it into her bag, and headed for the bathroom window. As her legs swung over the sill, the motel door splintered open. It wasn't David who stood in the doorway. It was the man who tried to kill her father 3 years ago, Brighton's head of security, smiling like he'd found a lost pet. "Hello, Ms. Torres." Your father's been asking for you." The man who'd built an empire making calculated decisions now had only seconds to choose between his company and the woman who despised him. David crouched behind his rental car, watching Brighton's men escort Brianna from the motel room. 3 armed guards, 1 terrified woman, and a flash drive that could save or destroy everything he'd built. He'd track her through his car's GPS, arriving minutes too late. Now rain soaked through his clothes as he calculated impossible odds. His phone vibrated. Caraway's text carried devastating news. "Board meeting emergency. Brighton offering evidence against us. 1 hour to respond, or we're finished." The company he built from nothing hung by a thread. Thousands of employees, billions in assets. His life's work balanced against one woman who'd fled from him. The choice took less than a heartbeat. Brianna stumbled as rough hands pushed her toward a waiting SUV. Brighton's head of security, Marcus Wells, kept her father's flash drive in one hand, gun in the other. "Your father was smarter than we gave him credit for," Wells remarked conversationally. "Hiding evidence in plain sight, giving only you the access codes. Clever man. Where is he?" she demanded. Wells smiled thinly, eager to reunite the family. How touching. The first guard dropped without warning, a red bloom spreading across his chest. The second reached for his weapon as another shot cracked through the rain. Wells yanked Brianna against him, gun pressed to her temple. "Whitford, I know you're there. She dies if you move." David emerged from shadows, water streaming down his face, weapon steady. "It's over, Wells. Federal agents are 3 minutes out." A lie, but Wells couldn't know that. "Then we all have places to be." Wells backed toward the vehicle, dragging Brianna. "I'm taking her as insurance." "The flash drive contains everything," Brianna called out, eyes locked on David's. "About Brighton framing your company, about the weapons violations. Everything." Wells pressed the gun harder against her head. "Shut up." In the distance, sirens wailed. Coincidence or miracle, David couldn't tell. Wells' attention wavered for half a second. David fired. The bullet struck Wells' shoulder. Brianna twisted free, driving her elbow into his stomach. The flash drive skittered across wet pavement as they struggled. David lunged, tackling Wells as local police cars flooded the parking lot, responding to reports of gunfire. Chaos erupted, shouting officers, blinding emergency lights. Rain-slicked pavement turned red and blue. Through it all, David held Brianna against his chest, her body trembling with delayed shock. Would you believe someone's actions over their words? The question hung unspoken as police secured the scene. With his business partner calling for emergency response and Wells in custody, David expected her forgiveness. Instead, Brianna whispered words that froze his blood. "Thank you for saving me. Now, please let me go." She had 5 days before her flight to California and a new life. 5 days he intended to use, proving that money hadn't corrupted his heart. "You're really leaving?" David stood in the hospital corridor, maintaining the distance she'd established between them. Her father slept peacefully in the room behind them, finally safe after FBI agents secured his testimony against Brighton. "There's nothing keeping me here." Brianna avoided his eyes, focusing on the flight confirmation on her phone screen. Dad's agreed to witness protection after his recovery. "I need a fresh start." The charges against Brighton Industries dominated every news channel. Wells had confessed to orchestrating the attack on Robert Torres, clearing David's company completely. Victory should have tasted sweeter. 5 days, he said finally. "That's all I'm asking. Before you decide." She shook her head. "We tried, David. It didn't work. No, we reacted. We survived. We never tried." His words followed her to the small apartment she'd rented near the hospital. 5 days until California. 5 days to pack up a life that barely existed anymore. The first message arrived that evening. Not flowers or jewelry, as she'd half expected from a billionaire, but a simple photo of his cabin with dawn breaking over the lake. No caption, no plea, just peaceful beauty. Day 2 brought a voice message. "I fired Caraway today. Not because he did anything wrong, but because I realize I don't trust easily either. You taught me that." Day 3. a sealed document containing shares in his company transferred to her father's name. Not charity, the note read. Partnership. His expertise deserves recognition. Day 4 arrived with rain and silence. No message, no contact. The absence felt heavier than any presence. Brianna packed methodically, airline ticket on her nightstand like a promise or a threat. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked hollow-eyed, incomplete. Her phone chimed unexpectedly. A text from David. I didn't know who you were when we met, but I've never known myself better than when I'm with you. Something cracked inside her chest. The wall she'd built around disappointment and fear. Memories flooded back, his body covering hers during the shooting, his unwavering focus when she spoke, the way his hands shook slightly the first time they touched. The airport departure board blinked coldly in her dreams that night, counting down hours rather than days. Is starting over somewhere new easier than rebuilding something broken? She wondered, staring at the ceiling. What would you choose? On day 4, when hope was nearly gone, she found herself outside his building in the rain. Not for closure, but for the truth she'd been running from since that first night. She came to his door, soaked from the storm, not seeking shelter from the rain, but from the loneliness that had followed her long before she met him. David opened the door in sweatpants and a faded t-shirt. Dark circles under his eyes, suggesting sleep, had become as elusive for him as it had for her. Brianna. Her name sounded like both question and answer. I need to know one thing. Water dripped from her hair onto the hallway's marble floor. That night in Chicago, why didn't you just take what I was offering? He stepped back, inviting her inside without touching her. The penthouse felt different now. Smaller, more lived in, less like a showcase of wealth, and more like the temporary shelter of a man with nowhere to call home. Because you weren't offering yourself, he said finally. You were offering a transaction. And now, her voice barely carried across the space between them. Now I'm not interested in anything you feel forced to give. Rain pounded against floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights blurred into watercolor streaks. Thunder rolled in the distance as they stood facing each other, neither retreating nor advancing. I've spent my life running, she admitted. From poverty, from my father's secrets, from people who wanted to use me. I know the feeling. His smile held no humor. Different circumstances, same outcome. And now I'm tired of running. He didn't move toward her, giving her the space to decide. She closed the distance between them, her hand finding his face, tracing the stubble along his jaw. Me too. The kiss began tentatively, a question rather than a demand. His hands hovered at her waist before pulling her closer, wet clothes against dry, cold skin warming against heat. I'm still leaving tomorrow, she whispered against his mouth. I know. His voice roughened as he lifted her, carrying her toward the bedroom. So tonight matters more. Their bodies remembered what pride had forgotten. That together, they created something neither could find alone. Each touch erased another doubt. Each kiss rebuilt another bridge between separate worlds that suddenly seemed less distant. Afterward, tangled in sheets and half-spoken promises, Brianna watched rain trails on windows mirroring tears neither of them had allowed themselves to shed. When was the last time you let your walls down completely? The thought drifted through her mind as sleep approached. Was it worth the risk? Morning brought not regret, but resolve, and a call that threatened everything they just rebuilt. Her father had disappeared from the hospital. They had 24 hours to find her father before his testimony disappeared forever, along with any chance of keeping David's corrupt competitors behind bars. Hospital security footage shows him leaving voluntarily. David's voice remained calm despite the emergency as they sped through morning traffic. No signs of struggle or coercion. That doesn't make sense. Brianna clutched her phone, trying her father's number for the 10th time. He wouldn't just leave protection, not after everything, unless he knew something we don't. The hospital room offered few clues, bed neatly made, personal items gone, nothing suggesting panic or pursuit. Only a folded newspaper with classified ads circled in red ink. This is our code. Brianna examined the markings. When I was a kid, we used the classifieds to leave messages. These numbers aren't phone numbers, they're coordinates. Within an hour, David transformed his penthouse into a command center. Multiple screens tracked possible locations while security experts analyzed threats. No authorities, they couldn't risk Brighton's remaining allies in government positions. Brianna translated her father's code, revealing coordinates for an abandoned research facility outside the city. Brighton's original testing site, David confirmed, examining property records. Shut down after the contract loss 3 years ago. He's found something there. Her fingers flew across keyboards, pulling satellite images. Something worth risking everything. Or he's being lured into a trap. David loaded a handgun with practiced efficiency. Either way, we need to move. Night fell as they approached the facility. A sprawling complex of concrete bunkers and chain-link fences half reclaimed by nature. No visible. No vehicles except one familiar sedan parked near a side entrance. Dad's car. Brianna's heart raced. He's inside, and probably not alone. David handed her a slim Kevlar vest. Stay behind me. The facility's interior stretched like a concrete maze. Dark corridors branching in multiple directions, emergency lights casting sickly green glow across abandoned equipment. Would you trust someone with your family's life after they broke your heart? The question echoed silently as they moved deeper into the complex. A distant crash sent them running toward what had once been a main laboratory. There they found Robert Torres frantically downloading files from an ancient computer system. Dad! Brianna rushed forward as her father looked up, eyes widening. You shouldn't be here. His voice rasped with urgency. Neither of you should. We thought. I found the original test data. He gestured toward the screen. Proof Brighton developed illegal weapons, then framed Whitford. But they've tracked me. They'll be here any minute. As if summoned by his warning, alarms blared through the facility. Security doors began sealing automatically. They found her father just before midnight, safe but shaken, and with information that would either destroy David's company or transform it forever. The choice was Brianna's. The billionaire who built an empire on oil now stood before press cameras with a woman who once sold her night for survival, both ready to tear down the corrupt foundation beneath their feet. We can release this anonymously, Brianna suggested as they reviewed the evidence her father had recovered. You don't have to be the face of the scandal. David shook his head. Brighton's allies will just bury it again. This needs a name and face they can't ignore. The data revealed how deeply corruption had penetrated both industries. Illegal weapons testing disguised as energy research, government officials bribed to look the other way, rival companies sabotaged when they got too close to the truth. You'll lose contracts, maybe the company. She watched his face for hesitation. Companies could be rebuilt, reputations earned back. His eyes met hers steadily. Some things matter more. The press conference drew media from across the country. Camera flashes created a storm of light as David took the podium, Brianna and her father standing beside him. For too long, the energy sector has operated in shadows, he began. Today, that changes. Screens behind them displayed damning evidence. Brighton's illegal operations, the false trail leading to Whitford Energy, the attempted murder of a whistleblower. I'm not asking you to be part of my world, he told Brianna before cameras rolled. I'm asking if we can build something better together. As questions exploded from reporters, David's hand found hers beneath the podium. Not for the cameras, but for strength they both needed. Later, after statements and evidence handoffs to federal investigators, they returned to his penthouse. The weight of the day finally lifted as doors closed behind them. Your board will fight this, she said. Let them. He pulled her close, mouth finding hers with newfound certainty. Some things are worth fighting for. Celebration turned to affirmation as they moved toward the bedroom. Clothes discarded like the pretenses they no longer needed. Their bodies spoke what words couldn't yet express. Commitment forming in each touch, future building with each shared breath. Would you sacrifice wealth and status for integrity and love? The question hovered unasked as they fell asleep in each other's arms. 6 months later, as his company rebuilt from scandal and her foundation for medical debt relief grew, David knelt on one knee with a simple question, and her answer would surprise everyone. The woman who once put a price on one night now held something priceless. A future built not on transaction, but transformation. "You sure about this?" Robert Torres adjusted his tie nervously as they waited in the small antechamber. "Not too late to run for it." Brianna laughed, smoothing the simple white dress that hugged her curves. "Not a chance, Dad." 6 months had transformed everything. David's whistleblowing had indeed cost him. Board positions, contracts, fair weather friends. Brighton's executives faced federal charges while government committees launched investigations into industry-wide corruption. From those ashes, something unexpected emerged. David redirected his remaining resources into clean energy research, partnering with Robert's expertise in sustainable technologies. Meanwhile, Brianna established a foundation providing medical care to communities like the one she grew up in. The headlines shifted from scandal to innovation. Whitford-Torres partnership revolutionizes energy sector. Ready, David appeared in the doorway, eyes finding hers with the same intensity that had caught her attention that first night in Chicago. The courthouse ceremony wasn't what people expected from a billionaire's wedding. No extravagant display, no society photographers, just 20 guests and a judge who owed Robert a favor. "Dearly beloved," the judge began as they stood hand in hand before the small gathering. David had offered everything: destination weddings, celebrity planners, honeymoons on private islands. Brianna chose simplicity, understanding that true wealth wasn't found in what you could buy, but in what couldn't be purchased at any price. "I, David, take you, Brianna." His voice remained steady as he repeated vows, thumb brushing across her knuckles. Her own voice carried clear and certain, "I, Brianna, take you, David." Later, in the privacy of their hotel suite overlooking Lake Michigan, the same city where they'd first met under such different circumstances, his touch carried reverence born from journey rather than destination. What began as business became passion, then partnership, creating a love more valuable than the empire they transformed together. Each kiss acknowledged the path that brought them here. Each caress celebrated the choice to stay. "What price would you pay for true love?" she wondered as they lay together afterward. "Is anything too expensive when measured against a lifetime of happiness?" Morning light found them planning their next project, combining his business acumen with her community insights to expand healthcare access across states that needed it most. "I once thought dignity had a price tag," Brianna admitted as they watched sunrise paint Chicago's skyline. "Now I know better." David's arms tightened around her. "What changed your mind?" "Finding someone who saw my worth before I believed in it myself." If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that remind us some things can't be bought. They can only be earned through courage, truth, and the willingness to see someone for who they really are. Tell me in the comments which moment in their journey resonated most with you. Are you Team Brianna or Team David? And remember, sometimes the highest price we pay isn't measured in dollars, but in the courage to trust again.